This is TJ with Tech Made Easy. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. And what we're going to do today is we're going to set up one of my favorite server softwares, and that is TrueNas Scale. I've been using TrueNas Scale for 10 years, but back then it was called FreeNAS. They changed the name to TrueNas, and then they also created a Linux version, and the Linux version of FreeNAS is TrueNas Scale. So what we're going to do is we'll download the software to make a bootable boot disk. We'll download TrueNas Scale. We'll install it on bare metal. We'll set up a pool, and a pool is like a drive on Windows. Then once we have that drive set up, we'll set up Dataset, which are folders. We'll give access to those folders by creating a user and a share, so that we can have access to those folders through Windows, through our Linux desktop, through the Mac. Now, one of the reasons why I'm making this is because when I first started using TrueNas, I'd been a Windows user all my life, and it was such a different experience for me. Even though it was a GUI interface, just because something's a GUI interface doesn't mean you're going to automatically know how to use it. So all of the server software out there can be a little intimidating because it's so different than what maybe you've used as your operating system. Even the NASs that you buy that have their built-in operating system, it's still going to be a different interface than what you're used to. So I wanted to make this as easy as possible to set those things up. And I wanted to do it on bare metal because most of the people are going to run this on bare metal, not in a VM. Some in a VM, but I want to do this on bare metal. And this is the machine I'm going to go ahead and install this on. Okay, so here's the PC that we're going to install TrueNas on. And just so you know, you can pretty much install TrueNas on any desktop. You can install it on a mini PC. You can call it on a small form factor, i5, i3s, i7s, Xeons, whatever it is. And that's why TrueNas, so many people use TrueNas as their file server. It's so compatible with many desktops. It's not just commercial networking, or not networking, but server software. But this particular one, I added the 5-drive bay. I put in a 10 gig NIC and a high-speed hard drive controller card because this is going to be a 10 gig network box for me, and I want the highest performance I can get out of it. And so that's why I've put all those things in there. But again, you can install it. My home server now is a small form factor PC that I installed TrueNas on. There's a video down below that I'll leave a link to if you're interested in that. And so that's what we're going to install it on. Okay, once we have TrueNas installed on our hardware, we'll no longer need to have access to that because we're going to access it through the network. And so most servers, even your mini servers that you buy off the shelf, are headless servers. In other words, you access them through your web browser. So we'll go ahead and access that through the web browser. Okay, so now that we have what we're going to install it on, just want to let you know that this software, all server software, can be intimidating. But the thing about TrueNas Scale is that it's commercial grade server software. The file format's a ZFS, and that's what most servers are running for their data storage is ZFS. And TrueNas Scale has a lot of options, but as a home user, we don't need all those options. We just need to know the basics to have a server set up. So let's get started. I'm at the TrueNas Scale download page, and what you want to do is you want to download the stable version, the 23.10.2. So you just hit download, and it'll take a minute to download. So I'm going to stop that. I already have it downloaded. And then what we need is we need some software to make a bootable USB. If you already have software to do that, then you can use that as well. Or we can download this Balena Etcher. And so you just hit download here, and it gives a Linux, Mac, and Windows version. And we're going to choose this 64, this portable one here. And so we'll download that. It downloads really quick. I've already downloaded it, and I've already copied it to the desktop. So we'll just go ahead and launch it right here. And this will help us make a bootable USB for our TrueNas Scale. So we just select from a file, and there's our TrueNas. We select the target, and I've got this Samsung USB drive here, and we're going to just select that. You've got to make sure that you have the right drive selected, and then we're going to go ahead and flash this. Now if it's a large drive, it'll say, hey, this is a large USB drive, are you sure you want to use it? I'm going to hit yes, and then it will go ahead and start that. But once it's done, it'll just pop up, say it's done. Okay, this is the screen you'll get when it's done. So just say flash another, and we're done flashing that. Our USB, we're going to go to our server. Okay, so here we are at my boot menu, and this CT, that's the hard drive I'm going to install to. The Samsung is the one that the USB flash drive that we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. And you might as well hit UEFI when you're doing this, unless you're really on an older system that you can hit it with the legacy if you want. But I'm just going to go ahead and hit this here. It's going to come up with this start install, so we're going to go ahead and install this. It'll load up a few files. Then it's going to give you this menu, and of course we're installing this, so we're just going to hit OK, and we're going to look for that device, and it's right here, even though it doesn't say. All these other ones are hard drives, so you got to be careful when you're doing a whole bunch of drives on here, which one you're using. I mean, you can tell on here that these are 5.5. They're really 6 terabyte hard drives, but so that's my SSD that I'm installing the operating system on, and you can see that it says NTF because it was just I was just using it for storage. So let's hit enter. We're gonna hit yes to wipe, and you can. There's two ways to install this. You can install as a root user or administrative user. They prefer the administrative, but it works either way. So we're just gonna hit administrative. We're going to put in our password here. And then sit back and relax. It will ask you to create a swap file. Now you can sit back and relax. Once the installation is complete, it's going to ask you to reboot the computer, and then it will boot into TrueNas. And then we can go to the desktop. Okay, you've just installed TrueNas, and so it just wants you to remove the media and reboot. So let's reboot that system now. Okay, it's just going to ask you to go ahead and run TrueNas. Now it'll automatically start if you don't start it within so many seconds. Then it'll just go through the boot up, and then you'll be ready to go. Okay, once it goes through the boot up, then you're just going to hit this menu, and you don't have to do anything from here. You're just going to go to your desktop. You're going to have to remember the IP address there, that 192.168.1.42. But let's go to the desktop and access our server. When we get to our browser, we're just going to type in http://192.168.1.42, and then that will take us to our administration screen, and you're just going to type in admin, because we said we were going to be doing admin on the install, and we're going to put in our password, and we are ready to go here. Okay, so let's check out our interface here. So what's most important here is it'll just show you some CPU usage. Right now we're usually very little CPU. In this machine I have 64 gigs of RAM, which is showing 62, and so it's not showing anything else, no hard drives or anything like that. You can put a few other things on here if you want. You can put your network adapter on here as well, your card, whatever, which one you're using. And I'm going to do that here. I don't remember which one of these. I'm just going to put all of those there. And you can reorder these too if you want. And so, but what we're going to do right now is we're going to create storage. And so we're going to take those 5 hard drives that I have, and we're going to create a pool here. And pool is just, it's going to combine all those into one drive basically. And they just call that a pool. So I'm just going to name this pool files. I'm not going to encrypt it. You can encrypt it if you want. But that's only if someone gets your hard drives and they can't have access to them. And then it's going to show you these, since I named this files, file shows up right here. These are the drive. They're not going to be drive letters. They're assigned these drive addresses basically. But you just click on that, and then it'll show you over here that there's 5 drives. You just hit next. And the layout is more or less what kind of, are we going to mirror these? We're going to RAID them. So in TrueNAS they call it RAID Z1. These are ZFS file formats. RAID Z1 is like RAID 5. RAID Z2, which RAID 5 gives you one redundant drive. If your drive goes down, you'll still have your data, and you can put in a new drive, and it'll restrike those, and you'll have your data. RAID Z2, you can have 2 drives go down. RAID Z3, you can have 3 drives go down. The rest of these, we're not going to worry about. These are more advanced ones. And more likely, most people are going to choose RAID Z1. If you have maybe 8 drives, then you might want to do RAID Z2. But we're going to do RAID Z1. And I'm going to do this manually. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, I'm going to add these drives. Now, the only reason why you want to do this is you may not be using all the drives that you see on the screen here. We're using all the drives, but I'm just going to put these in here. In other words, you may have an SSD, an extra drive down here that you don't want to be part of your RAID. Now, just so you know, with ZFS RAIDs, you can have different size hard drives, but it will take your lowest hard drive, and then so if you have 2 terabyte hard drive in the mix of this, then it's going to do the RAID as it's going to treat it as if all of them were 2 terabytes. So you really want, when you're doing RAID 5 with ZFS, you want all of your hard drives to be the same. So, and if you're using different brands, and maybe one of the brands is a tad bit, you know, instead of 5.46, it's 5.35. That won't matter. It will reduce it, but you can still use that and create your RAID array. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, these next steps, some of them are just log options. If you had a spare drive, you could assign a spare drive. So if one drive goes down, it automatically switches over to the spare drive. We're not worrying about that right now. Caching, we're not worrying about caching. The thing about TrueNAS and ZFS is, what's more important is that you have a lot of RAM. It makes your hard drives way more efficient. It uses the RAM that you have. The caching options are really if you're doing heavy database stuff, and you know, homeowner really doesn't necessarily need this caching here. Deduping, we're not going to worry about that. That is just like, TrueNAS will keep track of whether you have the same file in multiple places. And if it sees that, it'll dedupe the exact copies, so you just have one, but it kind of maps it. So anyway, I never do that. It takes more resources to do it. So I just hit review. I'm going to hit create pool and confirm this. Okay, so after you create that pool, it'll take you to the screen here, and this screen is how you manage your pool and then your folders within that pool. And folders in a pool are called datasets. Now the pool itself, you can look at the pool like you do in Windows. You know how you add a drive in Windows and it assigns it a letter, drive letter, say drive letter D. Well, the pool that we just created doesn't create a drive letter, but it is a drive. And the way TrueNAS works is it creates it has a folder called MNT, and that will become important later. and it attaches the files to that MNT folder. And so it works as a drive. So what we're going to do here is we want to create folders within that pool or that drive. And the way you do that is by creating a data set. And so over on the right here it says Manage Datasets. Then on the left you have these options on the left, and it has a dataset option as well. Both this dataset option here takes you to the same place that Manage Datasets take you. So let's go there. Here's our files pool that we created. So what we want to do here is we want to create a folder or a dataset underneath there. So we're going to say create or add dataset. So we're going to add this dataset on the left hand corner here, and I'm going to call this home. This is a home server. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just calling it home, and we're going to add some more datasets in here. But for right now, if you're an individual setting this up just for yourself and you're the only one accessing it, then this will make sense. This is the easiest way to set it up to get access to your server as quick as possible. So then under this option sync here, we're going to turn that off. You get better performance with that off. And you don't need that. A home user doesn't need sync on. So let's go ahead and save this. And there's other advanced options that we don't need to worry about. Share type we don't need to worry about yet. We're going to set that up anyway. So we're just going to hit save. So all the data sets that we're going to set up, we're just going to do the same thing. We don't really have to change anything. But we want access to this folder. So how do we get access to this folder? Well, first, let's create a user. So it has two users, but one is a root user, which you don't want to use, and one's an admin user, and you don't want to use that one to access your folders and files on your server here, TrueNas server. So we're going to create a user. And so we go up here to the left and we say add user, and I'm just going to create one for me, just put my initials in, and then it creates the username down below. It'll put it in lowercase. You can change that whatever you want. And I'm just going to put in a password here. And then it's going to create a user ID. And this user ID is 3000. It's going to create a primary group. We're going to let it do that. There's more than one way to do these, but for the home, this is going to be easy. If you had a business, you may want to set things up a little differently, but this is all we need to do. So we don't need to change anything else in here. We're just going to save that. Okay, so now we have me as a user. So let's create a share. So the share allows us to have access to the data set that we just created. So let's go ahead and add a share. Now the way you do that is you got to have your path of your share right here. Remember I talked about MNT. That's the folder where files is found. So there's our files. We're going to click on that, and we want to click on home because we want access to the home folder. And it'll put this path up in here. Your name is right here that you put in. We don't need to do anything else here, but just we don't need to go to advanced options. You got to remember that this is commercial software, and so you don't really need all of the options that they give you for a home server. And it says, do you want to go to the ACL? We're going to hit cancel for now. We don't need to worry about that. So what we're going to do now, though, is now we're going to go back to our data sets, and we're going to click on home here. And what we're going to notice here in permissions down here the bottom right is that the root user is the owner. We don't want the root user to be the owner. We want to go ahead and edit this, and we want to assign our user in here. And so what we're going to do here is we're just going to say, we're going to click on user as TG, the group's TG. We're going to apply the user. We're going to make this group read write as well. And we're just going to apply these permissions. Hit confirm. You don't have to do this on every single one, but this one we're doing this here. So we're going to save this. We have TrueNas set up, and we got a user and a share set up and our pools and everything, data set. So let's go into Windows. Let's create, let's go ahead and link to our network drive. And so all we have to do is go into the file manager. We can click on network, or you can just type in the and just do // we just type in that IP number 192.168.1.42. And if you want, you can do the backsplash again. It's not necessary, but it's going to ask us here to sign in. So I'm going to put my username in here and my password, and now I have access to that home directory, and now I can create a folder in here and start using it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back. So this is the easiest way. Now I have access to it. If you're the only one using TrueNAS at this point, then by all means continue to watch the rest of it, but this is all you need to do to have access to the server. But in my case, I have a family, I have kids, I have my wife, and what we like to do is we separate that. So we have a family folder which the whole family has access to. Then my wife and I have a personal folder to do our business in, and only my wife and I have access to those folders. And then I have a media folder or a video folder where I store all my video files for my server, and I only have access to that. So let's see how to set up those different users and how to restrict users from going into certain folders and have access to all folders. Let's go ahead and set up some more data sets, shares, and users. And by the way, for the rest of this, not for the rest of this, but we're going to be creating users and data sets, folders, and shares. I'm going to use Linux, my Linux file manager, which is similar to the Windows file manager, to go in and test those, because in Windows, as I'm going to see here, I have to log out and log back in. It kind of takes a little bit more time, and I'm trying to do this demo as quick as possible, and then I have to sign back in, and then I can sign in as a new user. In Linux, I don't have to do that. I just click it and I'm signed out. So once we're done creating those data sets and users and shares, we'll come back into Windows though, and we will connect to those really quick and show you that they work in Windows. Create some more data sets here, and that's why we created this home folder, because I want some more data sets underneath here. Because let's say that I want this to be a video server as well, and then I want personal folder for me and my wife, and maybe a general folder for my family. So we're going to create those three folders right now. So I'm going to create a media folder. But if you don't need to do all this, then if you just need access to a folder and it's just you, then you're set to go. But we're going to set up some more users. So this is how we're doing this here. So we're going to go ahead and save this, and we should see our media folder there. We want to make sure we're going to click them all under home. So let's add this. Let's add our personal. So we have a business. We use our home folder as a business, or our home server as a business server as well. My media server is separate, but in this case, maybe your parent, your wife, your husband, significant other, whatever, you want just access to one folder. You don't want anybody else to have access to that. But like me and my wife, we only want access to the personal folder. We don't want anybody else to have access to that. So I'm going to create that personal folder. Then I'm going to create a family folder that everybody has access to. And you can call them whatever you want. This is just all what I'm calling them. So we'll go ahead and save that. So now what we need to do, I put family under the personal. Let me delete that. Create that again. So maybe this is a good thing that's happened, because when you will go to delete a data set, you've got to put that data set the path exactly the way it is in here. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in, and we'll just go ahead and delete that. And then what I'm going to do here is click on home again, and I'm going to create a family data set. Hit save. Okay, so now so on this media one here, I want to have exclusive access to this. I don't give anybody access to my video server, because I don't want them deleting any videos or anything that I've ripped on there. So I'm going to go ahead and just give me access to this. Okay, we're going to assign me in here again. And we're just going to go ahead and save that. Now I'm going to go back in here because this is where I need to go into the ACL. So I'm going to edit this. We're going to set ACL. I'm going to cancel this. Now the reason why I want to come back in here is because I got other in here. I don't want anybody getting in here but me, because when other is set at read and execute, even when someone logs in, they won't be able to change anything, but they'll be able to read anything that's in there. And so I don't want other to have access to this folder or data set. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. So only I have access to that. Okay, so now we have this here, and so we have these other folders now. So let's get people to have access to those. First, I'm just going to test that I can get into that media folder, and I'm going to log in again. So I should be able to edit in here now, and so I'm just going to get rid of this folder. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set up some users besides me. So I'm going to set up my wife. And then I'm going to set up her password. And again, we're just going to save it. We're not going to make any changes, but just add her and the password. And then we're going to add a home user account. And so we're just going to do HU for home user. And that'll be what the kids will use to log in, to have access to the server. But I'm going to only give the kids access to the family data set. So I only have access right now to this media, but I want me and my wife to have access to this personal one. So let's go ahead and edit this over here. This is where we're going to have to go in and set the ACL. So we'll set that in here. And we'll just hit, we don't need to worry about these ACL presets. So we're going to go ahead and add, oops, sorry. Actually, we do need to add mask. So let's just go ahead and put mask in here. When we add another user, we need mask. But I'm going to change this. I'm going to put me as the owner of this folder. And so we'll just change that here. Okay, so now that I've done that, let's go back into there. And now what I want to do is I want to add my wife in here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add. And we already created a mask. Remember, you have to create a mask if you're going to have other people access this folder. So I'm going to go over here where it says who. I'm going to put user, and I'm going to put my wife in here. And then I'm going to add another item here, and that I'm going to go back over here. We're going to add my wife's group in here. And again, there are other ways to do this. I'm going to put read write on here. In fact, I forgot to put that on her user. We're going to do read write execute here. And there are other ways to do this, but for a family, for a home, this is the easiest way to do this. So we don't need to apply permissions recursively at this point, so we'll just hit add. Now the one thing that we do want to do in here, when we were in there, I should have taken off, let's go back here, this other. I don't want anybody to be able to read or execute anything in there. So I'm taking that off. So now, in this folder, if I go here, I'm going to go ahead and log into this again. I'm going to log in as my wife though. And we're going to notice here, username and password. Now my wife has access to this, and she can delete and create stuff in here as well, but she can't get into my media folder. We haven't set anything up for family yet, so let's go ahead and set that folder up. So now what we're going to do is we want everybody to have access to this family folder. So again, we're going to go back into here, and we're going to go ahead and hit set ACL, hit cancel here. We want to take ownership of this, so I'm going to take the ownership of this, and then I'm going to allow other users in my family to have access to it. And so for right now, I'm just going to save this and we'll come back into it. You might be able to add everything at once in there, but this way I make sure that I'm in here before I start adding everybody else. So now what I'm going to do is I have to add this mask just like before. Now we're going to add my wife. Then I'm going to add her group in here. And then I'm going to add, oops, I hit save. That's okay that I hit save. I'll just go back in. Let's go back in here. Now I'm going to add, the home users, which is my kids. And like I said, you could create a user name and password for each person if you wanted to, but I don't really need to do that on here, so I'm going to put their group in here as well. And there are other ways to do this, but this, for a home user, this is probably the easiest thing to do. So now all these people in here have access to the family folder, but I still don't want this other in here, so we're going to take that out. So now we're just going to go ahead and save this. Okay, so now let's go back in here. I'm going to go ahead and log out of that, and we'll just go ahead and now we'll access this. We're going to log in as a home user or one of my kids. Put in our password here. Now they're not going to be able to get into my media, and they're not going to be able to get into the personal, but they'll have access to these. They create their folders, whatever they want there. And this is where we could put family pictures if we wanted to. We could put other folders in there. And how you organize your server is up to you. I'm just trying to show you 3 different ways to assign shares and users and permissions. And so now let's go ahead and log out of this. And I'm going to log in as me, so that I can see. Obviously, I should be able to have access to everything that we just did. Should have access to here and to the family. I'm just creating these. Okay, so that is how you do that. Now let's just go to Windows for a minute. Okay, so here we are at Windows, and what we're going to do here is I've already got this in here, but we just type in / 192.168.1.42, and then I'm gonna just log in as a home user just to show you. And so now I shouldn't have any access to these folders, just like I was in Linux. But now I will have access to here. Let's create a new folder, and should be able to delete as well. And so now let's go ahead and log out. And this is why I was using, let's sign out, Linux to do this, because I don't have to log out and log back in. And open up our file browser, go back,
And I'll just log in as my wife. Oops. And then we should see that she can edit in here. And should be able to delete as well. But she should be able to go into family. Ooh. No access to family. Right on my wife's username. So I wasn't able to get into there. But let's just go back to Windows. As soon as we save that. And now I should have access. And I might have to log out. Nope, there we go. Now I have access to this. And I should be able to delete in here as well. But again, I shouldn't be able to have access to the media folder. So now I'm going to log out and log in as me. So now let's just put that back in here, and I should have access to everything. The family, create a document here, or a folder. Just like before, I should have access to all this stuff here. Oops. Create a folder in here, and I should have access to my media. Okay, so now that I'm in here and I've got it set up, I want to map. Now I can map to this. Give it a drive. So now I've mapped. So now I've mapped to my new server. You can start copying files over. Now, let's just drop this one in here. Personal. There's our new file. Okay, so that is how you set up your RAID array, your users, your shares, and your data set, your folders, how to assign users to those different data sets as well. So I'm going to show you one more thing here really quick. Okay, so there's just a few more things that I need to show you here. And one is, if we want to change the name of this TrueNas server, we actually do it under networking. It's not obvious where it's at. It's under networking. It's right here, host name. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just say this is, I'm going to do Tech Made Easy NAS. And so I'm just going to go ahead and save that. And then that will be our, that'll change that server host name so it doesn't show up as TrueNas all the time. Now the other thing is, I have a 10 gigabit card in here, so I need to edit my MTU here, and I need it to be 9014. And so I'm going to save this. Okay, so when you change these options here, the host name and the network settings, sometimes you have to reboot the system in order for those to take place. I've noticed sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but if you reboot, they always will. So that's how you change those. I've always wanted to show the easiest way to set this up because it gets a little confusing with the ACL and how to add users to different shares. And you know, TrueNas, if you've only used Windows only, and then you go to something like TrueNas, or some of these server softwares, and not just TrueNas, some of the other server softwares, it can get a little confusing. So I hope that was helpful. Have a great day. Thanks.
Now that was easy peasy.